What's up, everybody? Benji Bruce here with SpeakingLifestyle.com. And in this video, I just want to show you how to sound more in demand, like when you're reaching out to events, if you want to get on stages. Because if you sound more in demand, you're going to get more events. Like, not only will you get more events, but you'll be able to charge more in general, like if you want to charge. And I saw this a long time ago. It was with my friend Rich. And actually, if it wasn't for Rich, I wouldn't really be interested in business in general. But I noticed he was doing this a lot. That's why he was booked up so often. And Rich, he was an entertainer. He used to do magic all the time. And he was the guy where, once again, he was like the guy who's getting booked all the time. And I'm wondering, like, how's this dude getting booked? And so I started talking with him. And of course, as I would talk with him, sometimes there'd be phone calls that would pop up. And he would talk to these meeting planners to bring them in for the events. And the way he would talk to them, I'm like, damn, this dude's good. And so actually the perfect moment is similar to like in that moment with the Wolf of Wall Street movie, where you see all those penny stock guys, they're selling the penny stocks, and then you see the Jordan Belfort, the Leonardo DiCaprio, you see him like talking on the phone, and everyone like looks over like, damn. And that was kind of the moment that happened to me when I was looking at Rich, because these events, or the meeting planners, they would call him, they'd be like, yeah, we want to bring you in for this event. And he, like, it was the way he would talk. He said, oh, well, let me check my calendar real quick. I mean, I might have something that day or maybe the day after. I just got to make sure, let's just see real quick. What was the date again? Yeah. And it was like the way he was talking, and that in and of itself is what allowed him to sound in demand. And of course, he was able to book all these events. And so here's what you're really going to do when you sound in demand. There's a few things that you can do, but the way you want to think about this, think about it like dating. Okay. So with dating, if a guy is desperate, then he won't be able to get the girl, because he's going to be desperate, and he's going to do all sorts of things that's going to essentially repel her. And in fact, not just a guy and a girl, like anyone. A girl does it to a guy. Whoever's desperate, that's the one who's going to essentially get repelled by the other person. So a lot of people, when they're trying to get on stages, they come across as desperate. When they send the emails, when they talk to these events, they come across as desperate without even realizing it. And that is why they don't actually get booked. And so there's a few things that I did. And the funniest one is a WWTRD. So what is WWTRD? So WWTRD, it's one of those things where when I was trying to get myself booked on stages, both as an entertainer and a speaker, I knew that I had to do something similar to my friend Rich. I knew I had to sound in demand. The thing is, it's hard to sound in demand when you're not in demand. When you literally have nothing on your calendar, like, you naturally come across as desperate. And so I thought to myself, I said, okay, similar to WWJD, like what would Jesus do? I said, okay, WWTRD, what would Tony Robbins do? And that was my thing. And so every email that came in, every phone call, everything, I filtered it through WWTRD. What would Tony Robbins do? So I pictured Tony Robbins getting this email, and I said, okay, how would Tony respond to this email? Well, for one, he wouldn't respond to this email. For one, he would actually have an agent or manager who would respond. So I created my manager. I just literally created a manager. And so like little things like that, that I was doing. And even, let's say, an event, actually colleges, they did this to me. They tried to do it to me. Colleges, they would say something like, okay, yeah, we can bring you in. We all agree to the price and everything. Then they would say like, like, you got to invoice us and we'll give it to you 30 days after the event. And so I thought to myself, WWTRD, what would Tony Robbins do? And I said, would Tony Robbins seriously let an event give him the money 30 days after he spoke? Like, he invoices them and then he's got to wait for his money? Absolutely not. If anything, he gets all his money up front. Like, there's no way in hell he's going to wait for them to pay him. So that's what I said. I said, like, I'm sorry, that's not how we run our business. Like, we need 50% up front, 50% right before the event, or you can just pay the full 100% right now. So it was like that. And like little things like that really helped in terms of sounding in demand. And it comes down to little things. I said, okay, I know Tony Robbins, he wouldn't really ask, he would dictate. I mean, it's his business. Like, if you come to Tony, you say, hey, we want to bring you in for an event, he's going to say, here's how I work. Here's what we do. it doesn't matter what you do. He's going to say, here's what I do. Here's what I need. In fact, I want some red gummy bears in my green screen room. Like that's, I don't know if he really does. I think that's the Mariah Carey thing. But ultimately he would dictate instead of ask. And so I filtered everything through WWTRD. Now you can do it like, what would Gary Vaynerchuk do or whatever. And even if actually a really good thing that you want to do, if you know someone who hired someone like Gary Vaynerchuk or one of these top people, ask them about the process of how they hired them. So like, for example, someone actually did hire Gary Vaynerchuk that I know, and I asked her like, well, what was the process? Like, I mean, you can't clearly just send them an email and say, hey, I want to talk to you on the phone before we book you. And so, I mean, you can send that, but you're not going to be able to talk to Gary on the phone like that. And so I asked her about the process. And when you understand the process like that, you now put that process into your own business. And so little things like that, the WWTRD, if you want to sound in demand, you have to do that. The other thing that's going to make you sound way more in demand is kind of what I mentioned earlier in the WWTRD is you need to dictate. Like, don't ask, dictate. You don't ask, you tell them exactly what's going to happen. So if they say to you, oh, well, invoice us and we'll send you the payment 30 days after the invoice. You say, no, here's like how I work. I mean, you don't say it like that, but you basically say, I'm sorry, like here's how we work. So you're telling them how you work. It reminds me of how like when speakers would say, oh, the event wouldn't let me film or whatever. Like I asked them and they wouldn't let me film. Like, why'd you ask? Dictate, tell them you're going to film. Every single time an event contacts me, 100% of the time, I tell them I'm going to film. So it goes like this. I don't say, can I film? I write the email back and I say, by the way, do you have a camera guy or a camera crew that's going to be there to film the presentation? If not, I'm going to bring my own guy in. And that's literally what I do. And most of the times they do have a camera crew anyways because they want to film it. So I just say, okay, cool. Would you be able to get me a copy? And usually I might bring in somebody else, but still that's kind of what I'm doing. It's just like you're dictating. You're not asking, you dictate. Powerful people, they don't ask. Like you need to understand that when it comes to just power in general, powerful people, they tell, they don't ask. So the next thing in terms of sounding in demand is you want to contact a lot of events. And the reason why I say this is because think about it. You're sitting down, cold emailing, cold calling, whatever it is you're doing, you're reaching out to all these events. They're responding back to you. So I don't know how many you reach out to, but some of them are going to respond back to you. If you contact enough people, they're going to say, hey, what do you charge? Or hey, we might be interested, send us your website, whatever. They're going to respond back to you. So if you're doing this and you're contacting a lot, you're going to get overwhelmed by it. Like if you're doing a lot of it, you should get to the point where you're reaching out to so many events that you get overwhelmed by it. And this overwhelming feeling is going to basically create an in-demand feeling for you because I mean, think about it. Like you're sitting there, imagine you get 100 text messages and you have to respond to all of them because all of them are interested in doing business with you. So you're like, oh, snaps. And now you're like in urgency mode. Okay, now you got to respond here. Oh, this one. Oh, this one. Oh, this. No. Oh, and so it's like this energy inside of you. And so when you contact a lot of events, and I was contacting at least 100 a day, and like I was cold emailing at least 100 a day back in the day. And by doing that and all these emails coming in, I'm sitting there, I got to go really fast with stuff. And so that created this sense of urgency, this feeling of being in demand, not just sounding in demand, but feeling like I was truly in demand. Even though I didn't have a gig lined up yet, I felt like it because a lot of stuff was going on. And when a lot of stuff is going on, you feel in demand. And so that's what you got to do. That's why I tell everyone, like, reach out. Do so many that you're freaking exhausted. Next thing you want to do when it comes to sounding in demand is you never want to put an event on a pedestal. And what I mean by that is when an event or when you contact an event, let's say you contact an event, you're like, I'm the greatest speaker alive. And they say, okay, cool. They respond and they say, well, what do you charge? Well, what a lot of people do is they get all excited. They're like, well, what do you charge? The event says, what do you charge? And the speaker is like, oh, snaps. Oh, snaps. Oh, they're interested in me. Oh, snaps. I knew it. And so they get all excited. And at this point, because of the excitement, it's like they see it in their head in terms of they've already been hired, they've already gotten the gig, they picture themselves flying to the event, they picture themselves speaking at the event, they picture all this stuff in their head already just because that event said, what do you charge? And you got to stop doing that. Stop putting events on a pedestal. When people ask you, what do you charge? That's just like a reaction from them. Like it's just a gut reaction from them. They're not really interested at this point. It's just an initial response. And so you don't want to put events on a pedestal because you're like, okay, I don't really care about any one event until we actually get down the pipeline. So you don't put events on a pedestal until literally like the money's in the bank pretty much. Just keep that in mind. Like don't get excited that the event has closed when the event hasn't actually closed. In fact, it's not even close to being closed. You can't get excited by events. And the last thing that you really need in order to actually sound in demand is walkaway power. Now, how do you get walkaway power when you are desperate? So if you don't actually have gigs lined up, then it's hard to have walkaway power because once again, it's kind of like, well, you need the money. They're saying they'll pay you $5,000. You're like, okay, damn, I need it. So it's hard to have that walkaway power of like, get out of my face, man. You bothered me. Psh. Like it's hard to do that. So the way you get walkaway power is just stuff that you're going to do around your life. And I'll tell you exactly what I did. Basically what I did, I went cheap as all hell with everything. I stopped spending money on anything. I saved all my money. If I got a gig, I saved it. I didn't spend it on anything. I didn't go out and get new clothes, none of that stuff. I had an old car, 1989 Pontiac Sunbird. It was an old car. The muffler wasn't even working. So it sounded like a Harley Davidson. You can hear me coming from 2 blocks away. And so, I saved all my money. I had plenty of money to go buy a new car, all that stuff, but I saved all of it. So what happened was when an event would contact me and they would say like, hey, we'd love to bring you in, blah, blah, blah. What do you charge? And we go through this whole thing. And let's say eventually I quote $10,000 and they say, oh, I'm sorry. We only have 2,500. Well, I would say, okay, well, thank you. I appreciate it. If you guys can increase the budget, cool. If not, thank you. Boom. That's it. And so because I had money in my bank, I was able to do that. I was able to just walk away if there was like a huge gap. On the other hand, let's say I needed the money. Let's say I had nothing in the bank. Let's say I was broke, $100 in the bank. And all of a sudden I say, I just get some balls. I'm just like $10,000. And they say, oh, I'm sorry. We only have 1,000. Well, what do you think I would have done if I was desperate? I would have been like, oh, okay, well, sure, 1,000. Okay. Like that's what would have happened because I would have been desperate. So what you have to do is like throughout your life is you have to just save all your money, like save and spend money in order to make money, but you don't want to just spend money on dumb stuff. If you don't have at least $10,000 in your bank account, then you're gonna have a hard time like with this walkaway power. So you have to have this walkaway power by saving your money, and then when you do that, naturally you're going to sound in demand because you're not going to be desperate. Remember, the desperate person doesn't get the girl, so you can't be desperate. So that's really how you're going to sound in demand if you want to actually get more events. I can't stress this enough. If you want to get more events and you want to charge higher prices, you have to learn how to sound in demand. It is one of those things that's harder to do than you think. You just have to get to that point where you have the walkaway power and all that sort of stuff. And one of the best things is really contacting so many events, like so many freaking events that they're responding to you and you got to respond back and you feel that sense of urgency. That's probably like one of the best things in order to sound in demand. And so, by the way, guys, if you like this video, make sure you comment on it, like it, subscribe, all that sort of stuff. And I will see you guys soon. Adios.